Scanning for audio.
Welcome to a Tin Dog podcast covering Big Finish's latest release, The Brood of Erys. It's a Sixth Doctor and Flip story. Part of a trilogy. Yes, they're at it again, releasing 3 stories back to back. Now it is, and I don't like using this phrase too often, fairly standalone, with the exception of about 3 lines, which are references to other stories. That's it. You've got a Sixth Doctor and Flip story. Right here, right now, before you, written by Andrew, the friend of the podcaster, Smith. Andrew Smith is an interesting kind of guy, and someone who everyone else seems to have met except me. He did write my favourite, Destiny of the Doctor story, which was the third Doctor and Mike Yates' origin story. He's written The Sontarans, fantastic. And when he was a child, and let's face it, he was a child, he wrote Full Circle, or at least most of it, under the guidance of the ever-popular... It doesn't matter. The guy is very, very good. However, and I don't say this very often at all, this story just didn't quite do it for me. Now, I have to say that I was listening to this at work. My work is exceptionally mundane, exceptionally repetitive, and revolves about 0.5% of my brain power. So I and the other 200 people in the building can all listen to whatever they want to listen to. I like to think every so often that in fact everyone in the building is listening to a Big Finish story, but no one is going to admit it, all on their lovely headphones. Booming out on the tannoys above, however, is the local radio station. But that's not important. What is important is that I've got a sound booster linked into my MP3 player so I can override practically anything. Except, of course, for a fire alarm. So perhaps the fact that I was bored rigid at work and not having a particularly good day, I had been at A&E at 5 a.m, possibly reflected more on my review than it should have. I'd like to be objective. I'd like to take a step back and go, this is fantastic, but I just can't. It is, of course, very well done. Can't possibly work out why I didn't like it. It just didn't speak to me. Well, that's ridiculous as well, isn't it? Perfectly well written, perfectly well thought out, the concepts were good, the ideas were fine, the acting was, as always, superb, the Doctor's voice was captured, Flip's characterisation is actually evolving, which is great. The secondary characters, A, are well performed, and B, actually have a point of being there. But the idea of a sentient planet who's chatting and creates his own life, well, it just made me... You see, my problem again is I've now got a 5-year-old, and we've been watching Q Poodle 5. Now, for those of you not blessed to watch CBeebies, and I will rant in a moment about what's happened to BBC 3, or indeed you're not familiar with the books, which are so exquisitely illustrated. Q Poodle 5 is an alien who, in the books, visits Earth, gets a tin can and leaves. Or in one other book, he's got a friend, Oopsie, who races and avoids other alien creatures called bladder monsters, and he visits something called Planet Dave. Planet Dave is a sentient talking planet, and every time this thing, this sentient talking planet in Doctor Who spoke or thought or did anything, all I thought of was Dave. Yes, Brood of Dave, not quite the same ring to it. It's terrifying. You see, in Star Wars, you fire something up an exhaust port and you can take out a planet, but here you're dealing with, well, something with a brain the size of a planet, something not exactly malevolent, but it has to create its own entertainment. Think The Doctor's Wife, without The Doctor's Wife. Just house. Terrifying, dark, scary. But then again, I also kept thinking of Flash Gordon episodes with the Claymen who'd come out of the war. How old am I? Old black and white Flash Gordon Claymen storyline. But if you steal enough from other sources, you end up with something all your own, and that's what we've got. So yes, it's a terribly good story. Do not let me put you off. If you like the Sixth Doctor, yes, it's great. If you like Flip, she's great in this. She actually has great things to do. It's a bit exciting, to be honest. But it just didn't speak to me, and I suspect that's more to do with my mood than anything else. I will revisit this very, very soon, and I know I will enjoy it once more. So perhaps the lesson for this story is not to listen at work, is just to get on with life, and perhaps not visit A&E at 5 a.m, because that's going to put you in a bad mood all round for the rest of the day.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who, The Brood of Erys.
It's time.
Time.
It's time to begin.
We're hanging in space. Oh, they're pretty.
According to the TARDIS, that pretty planet and its pretty moon are the only bodies in this system apart from the star that they orbit.
Keep away. This system is out of bounds by interplanetary decree. If you proceed, your life will be in jeopardy, and should you survive, you will be subject to the severest sanctions that the law can provide.
You're called Drachee. I take it you come from that planet. What is your name?
What? What, my name?
Well, it's a simple question.
My name? Why can't I remember?
You asked what that sound was. It's the reason those warning beacons tell people to stay away. If you value your life, you'll leave here if you can.
It's dark along there.
Tunnels usually are. Hide all sorts of things.
Oh my god, no!
I act to defend myself and my children. Over the millennia, many have come here. They came to lay claim to me and to Asphya. They came with plots to slay me or enslave me.
Erys is more than just a moon.
My friend might be up there. What do you mean, more than just a moon? Is she in danger?
If your friend is on Erys, she is in the most terrible danger.
Subscribers get more at bigfinish.com.
Oh, and before I go, I just want to talk about BBC Three and the BBC in general. Now, everyone's going boo-hoo, BBC Three's closing down, they're only going to save 30 million, what's the point of that? Let's put it the other way around. BBC currently have 7 television channels. There's BBC Parliament, BBC Alba, CBeebies, CBBC, BBC 3, BBC 4, BBC 1 and BBC 2. BBC 1 and BBC 2 aren't being touched. BBC 4 has not been mentioned. Now, BBC 3 and BBC 4 both broadcast from 7 p.m. till about 3, 4 in the morning, depending on when their programming finishes. And then the signal is switched over so that CBeebies and CBBC, i.e. the channel for toddlers with the aforementioned Cubicle 5, and young children up to about the age of 6 or 7, and CBeebies, which is the ones you move on from, which basically show Scooby-Doo and Sarah Jane Adventures and that kind of things, and Wizards versus Aliens. Well, they also take up some of the same programming. If you sell BBC 3, you're going to have to do something with CBeebies and CBBC. The logical solution is, of course, to show CBBC programmes once the kids are back in school and at the weekend from, say, 9 a.m. onwards, and the toddler programmes from, say, 6 in the morning till 9, and then again in the afternoon. Basically, you show them during the day on weekdays when the kids who can watch these things are in. But no one at all has mentioned the effect it's going to have on kids' TV programming if you get rid of one entire broadcasting thread. So be warned. They might take the channel away that cancelled Doctor Who Confidential, but they're also taking away the channel that brought you Doctor Who Confidential. Now yes, us old school fans firmly believe that Doctor Who belongs on BBC 4. But if you get rid of BBC 3, what are you going to call BBC 4? BBC 2+1? No. That's just not on. So let's mourn and worry about the future of the BBC, because £30 million in the great scheme of things isn't an enormous amount. It's practically what they paid off someone who just left because they weren't very good at their job. Can we not just ask for that money back? Because not being very good at your job when you're an ordinary worker is usually just a reason for people to get rid of you, not a reason to buy you off. I'm sorry, I'm probably being very simplistic in not knowing all of the facts. But then again, I'm a Doctor Who fan and a podcaster. I'm allowed not to know all of the facts. And I'm allowed to have opinions about things which just don't matter, and I have no say in. I, for one, will miss CBeebies, and I don't want to know what's going to happen to CBBC. I know they can't make any Sarra. I know they can't make any more Sarah Jane adventures. I know it would be very difficult to use any of the modern companions in spin-off series to match Sarah Jane Smith. Who would we have? Let's look at the list. Gillen's busy making films. The Adventures of Rory would be funny but probably only last a series. The Adventures of Donna would consist of a programme with a lady going, hang on, I'm in the American office and I'm unable to sign up for your contract, and also I can't remember anything about aliens, so therefore I'm useless for this. Rose, see above, she's in another universe, so you could actually run the story with an alternate timeline and introduce alternative aliens. That actually could work, but Rose was such a long time ago that kids these days just wouldn't know, and let's face it, you would really need David Tennant to be in that, and he's too busy being Broadchurch. And that, with the exception of The Adventures of Martha, just ain't going to happen. And let's face it, Martha was in a programme on CBBC, and then she left in order to go back to, I don't know, whatever it's on ITV, Crime and Punishment or something. So I've rambled and I've talked at far too much length about something that I have no control over. But I am very, very worried. Perhaps it's just the animator in me. Worried that yet another strand of sales has diminished. An internet-only channel? That'll never catch on. Mind you, I said that about computer animation. What do I know? Be seeing you. You've been listening to the Tin Dog Podcast. Doctor Who and its connected properties are copyright and trademark of the BBC. No infringement is intended. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. Whostrology, a Time Traveller's Almanac, is available through Telos Publishing or Amazon. Visit www.whostrology.com for further information. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.